Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Line, the Way, and the War, where we discuss Jesus, His church, and the spiritual battle that surrounds us all. My name is Craig Allison.
My name's Brandon Bonner,
and we'll be your host. So have you recovered from last week's episode?
I'm getting there. I'm thinking about how bad that close was.
You really messed it up. So
I was like, what?
I probably won't ask you to do that again.
I'm going to be booted from the podcast.
Yeah. All right. This episode is also an interesting one. We're talking about near-death experiences. Is it people going to heaven, or are they hallucinating, or something else? And so the main question here: what do we make of all the stories that we hear from people that have experienced, have a near-death experience, and they see these things? They come back completely changed, and so it's really some fascinating stories to read. And I've read a ton of books on them, but there's two books that I'm going to promote. If you haven't read, and this interests you at all, I would highly recommend Appointments with Heaven. It looks, I don't know if we can turn that the right way. It's Appointments in Heaven. It's written by Dr. Reggie Anderson. I'm going to talk a little bit about his book. And the second one is Imagine Heaven. I had the copy. I loaned it out, and I didn't get it back. But it's called Imagine Heaven by John Burke. And so both really fantastic books. I highly recommend them. So I want to talk a little bit about this one first, Appointments with Heaven. And this is Dr. Reggie Anderson. He is a family physician, and in this book, he recounts years of sitting with dying patients. This is what makes his book different. He's not like a researcher that has secondhand information. He literally has sat as patients died, thousands of patients, and He talks about the moments where patients appear to see deceased loved ones, speak of heaven, or display an unusual peace as they passed from life. And so he argues that these experiences can't be simply dismissed as fear or wishful thinking or medication-induced hallucinations. And towards the end, he even began to smell Listen, this is, if you thought last week was a weird episode, so he is sitting, and you just have to read this book. So he's sitting beside the bedside of these people as they pass away, and he began to recognize certain odors at the point of death. And the people who had good transition, peaceful experiences as they were dying, people that he had talked to before they died and they had a Christian faith, he would smell, as they died, this lilac smell. It was a very pleasant smell that he describes. And he didn't pick up on this until much later, and then he began to recognize this smell that he calls, basically like it's a smell of heaven. And he believes that as those gates are, as this person transition into this afterlife, if they're going to the good place, he would smell this very pleasant lilac smell. Here's the other part that is really freaky. He is also sitting by the bedside of an atheist. And he said that he began to smell sulfur, like a sulfur odor, of people who were non-believers as they passed away. And he even has the other book that I recommended. The reason I connected these two is because the other author writes of, he's got thousands of different interviews that he's done of people who died and then came back. And it's interesting that he talks about one of these I'm going to share in just a minute, who who came back and did not like his experience. Okay. So we'll get to that book in just a minute, but I want to touch on a few things about this book here that was very interesting. So this first thing, the dying patients often report similar experiences. And so he observed patients describing deceased family members waiting for them. And many spoke of seeing beautiful places, brilliant light, or loved ones shortly before death. And these experiences often occurred among people with different backgrounds and personalities. So, didn't matter what their personality was. They had the same experience. What's your takeaway on that?
Yeah, so this is I'm hearing all this for the first time for those that are listening.
That's why I love doing this to you, just like because it's always fun to watch your reaction and see, one of these days I want to just have you be like completely blank, like to have no idea what to say. There's just this awkward silence.
There's been many of those times I just start rambling on. No, I think when I think about this topic, and again, I didn't grow up in church.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there was a period in my life where I was an atheist. So I remember hearing stuff like this and thinking, this is just baloney. I mean, this is just not accurate. And I think wasn't there a very popular book, and it came out that, what was it called?
A popular book. There's a lot of books
like
out there.
About someone like going to heaven after death and coming back, but it ended up not being real.
Heaven is Real?
Maybe.
Todd Burpo?
Yes.
A preacher with his son?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, interesting story there. So that got confused with another one that turned out to be fake. But the Heaven is Real one with, I think the guy's last name was Burpo, and he had a son who died or was, surgery or something near-death experience, and so that one was never discredited. But there is... that's the immediate takeaway. People will push back on that. Go, oh, that was fake. Well, they're confusing it with another one.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, so but I do think that's like the initial reaction. Even as believers, I think this is abstract because it's like, I don't know, like heaven alone is abstract for us. And that's something I think, we've talked about in the past. Like heaven is such an abstract thing. I don't think we talk about it enough. Mm-hmm. It's just a place that maybe we don't think about because it's like, I don't know, it's so far away that it's not worth talking about, but it is. I mean, it's worth discussing, like this home that we're going to go into, hopefully, if we follow the way, that's where we're going to be going. And that's an exciting thing to talk about and share with others.
Yeah, it's an interesting, I don't want to get too far off on this side tangent, but, you talk about, when you die, it's your physical body, which is just temporary. You inherit. Paul talks about putting on the immortal, putting away the mortal, putting on the immortal, exchanging this. So you're leveling up, basically, is what you're doing. And when you look at Jesus on the cross, he tells the thief next to him, "Today you will be with me in paradise." So he puts a timestamp on it, which is kind of interesting. And so there's a place that we go when we die. Our soul, okay, has a place that it has to go. And Scripture lays that out in some really interesting terms. The story of the rich man and Lazarus gives us some insight into what appears to be, and here's how I explain it to people. It's basically like a waiting room.
Yep.
Like when you're sick and they have a sick area, if you're sick, you go over there, but if you're well, you stay over here. And so it's kind of similar, as my understanding of Scripture takes shape in my mind. I see this place that is referred to as paradise, which, interestingly enough, is not heaven. It's not like the final place. It's the waiting room, but it's a super cool place to be. And then there's this gulf that you cannot cross. And then the sick place it's not the place that you want to be at all. It is torment. It is the precursor of what's to come. So both places, your souls, depending on how you live your life, are waiting for final judgment. And that's kind of horrific in a way if you think about it, because the folks that are in the torment, okay, they're getting a taste of I think what's coming, and that is an absolutely terrifying thought to think about. I could, my theology on that, because again, we're kind of limited with what we know. So I could be off base on that. And I hope if I am, somebody will call in and correct, call in. It's like a radio show. We don't have a phone. Sorry, you can't call in. But email us or whatever, and help me understand that better. So anyway, when we read these books, the people with good experience, I think they're going to the good waiting room, and it appears that in a lot of them, Jesus is there. He certainly was telling the thief on the cross, he says, "Today you will be with me in paradise." And then, we await there until, the final judgment. Okay. So this doctor's, getting back on the book, the doctor's perspective, I mentioned he's unlike any other near-death experience person, because he's speaking from a very personal standpoint, which is what makes this book so fascinating. When he talks, there's a lot of different stories in here that are just riveting to read them. And so he's talking about coming from years and years of observations as a doctor, and he describes himself as witnessing countless end-of-life moments that convinced him death is not the end of consciousness. And so I wonder what it takes for a physician to come to that point, to make that statement. And I also wonder about if you had a non-believer and this is just like me thinking out loud here. If you had a non-believer who got to sit beside him and witness all the things that he saw, would that change? I've been in very few situations where I've actually watched somebody die, and I'm talking about this now because the most recent one was a couple Wednesdays ago. I'm not going to mention any names because I don't know. I haven't had permission, but we had a gentleman on Wednesday night who had an issue with his heart, and he literally died. We had to put an AED on him, and we had folks here, part of our emergency contingency plan, that just snapped into action. It was really amazing to watch. And his heart had stopped beating. He had we not done CPR, resuscitation, and put so he would not have come back. And so there's a group outside waiting for the ambulance, and they're praying. And then there's some of us that are inside, and I'm trying to console his wife who witnessed this whole thing happen. And you know what? When they said he didn't have a pulse, that his heart had stopped, and I start praying, I got the most serene sense of just calm. Like all of a sudden, it just the whole feeling that I was feeling, and just the shock of what was happening. I just can't even begin to describe this sense of peace, like everything was going to be fine. And so I pulled his wife, so I'm standing right there, and she's very upset. And I pull her ear right up to my mouth, and I told her, I said, everything is going to be fine. And I, not in a million years, under those circumstances, would have said that. But I don't know why I did it, or, well, I have a hunch why I did it. But we were all standing there at a transition where I think, this spiritual realm, that curtain that separates the physical from the spiritual, had become very thin right in that moment as this is taking place. And kind of like, with Dr. Anderson, where, he's sensing these smells as people are transitioning. So I'm so fascinated with that. And for me, it's encouragement to know that this life is not it. Like when this body passes, like there's eternity on the other side of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a much better worldview.
Yeah.
Right. If you lived your life and you thought, when I die, that's it. I mean, this is the life that we have. that first off is it's kind of scary. It's
Yeah.
like, who knows when that moment will be? And we saw that a couple Wednesdays ago where a gentleman just, we didn't know what to do. It was just a traumatic experience. And like, it reminded me that life is, I mean, it's fragile and it go quick, but knowing as a believer that this is all temporary. Like this is such a small piece of eternity. And so we have this afterlife and this opportunity that in the afterlife, keep in mind, is going to be just so much better.
Yeah.
It's going to be just unfathomable how incredible it's going to be for us to be with Jesus. Yeah. And so, and something else, I was thinking about when you were talking, we mentioned this last week, the power of prayer. And that being, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, but that being a supernatural ability that we have. Yeah. Like that is a incredible spiritual gift that we have, where we have this connection. And I mean, I think that, us praying in that circle outside for the gentleman and you praying here with his wife, I mean, that should be our response to any situation. Yeah. Like we are pleading out to God. Like, I think in the prayer we were circled up, I was like, I don't know what to say, but like, God, just help us. We it's an incredible tool that we have that I just don't think people use as like an offensive tool.
Yeah, I don't think that we truly appreciate and understand what prayer is. Yeah. In all honesty, and he talks about that in this book. Dr. Anderson talks, because he is coming from a Christian worldview, and so he would pray, and I think about all of the other times that I pray, not in those types of moments, because that's one of the few times where I'm praying for somebody as they're dying, and in his case, no heartbeat. Where he was, where his soul was at that point, I'm not sure. But I know that veil at that point, that moment in time, was probably thinner than other times, that I would experience. And so, to me, being able to utilize that gift that God has given us in that moment stands in stark contrast to, I guess the question is, why don't we approach prayer with that type of mentality all the time?
I think about that moment just because it's recent. It was the only thing we knew what to do. I'm not a medical professional. The 20 or 30 people that are outside, we left because we weren't medical professionals. We could not do anything. So the only thing that, and shout out to a lady at her church, I won't mention her name, but she said, someone needs to pray right now. Like we didn't, that's the only thing we knew to do. And so when I think about many situations in my life, sometimes there's not the overwhelming need to pray. Yeah. Right? When you're faced with a decision, like, I'm making this decision. Yeah. I get to choose it. I don't have to pray. You should pray. I need to pray, but like that is not like there's other choices and avenues, and I can depend on myself or depend on others. So in moments where, and I think, that's probably part of the reason why when we get to like lows in our lives, like worst case, rock bottom, we often resort to prayer. It's like a last resort, which is unfortunate. Yep. But it is because we've exhausted everything, and the only thing we can depend on now is prayer, which it should be. That's the first thing that we go to.
Always, the go-to.
And so, I mean, maybe that's how we reframe it. And when I think about, stuff like this and, being in situations where you're with people in their last moments, and I've only been with, I think, one, but I remember in that scenario, the overwhelming comfort, and it was through prayer. I mean, we're singing songs, praying for somebody, nurses, doctors coming in and just in tears. Didn't, they're just a patient, just because, there's 15 people in the room praying over someone as they transition. I mean, that's like, in those moments, it's such a forefront. Like that's a forefront of our mind. But it also should be in everything else we do, because you can see in those moments how powerful it is.
Yeah. Not to be like overly dramatic here, but I know who you're talking about, and I wonder, like, as she's being ushered into paradise, and hearing everybody sing and pray, like, what a cool thing that would be to look at,
Yeah.
and yes, people are sad, but if you're a Christian, you're like, man, I'm not going back for nothing, man.
Yeah.
This is, I wish you guys could see what I'm seeing right now,
Yeah.
That's why Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead has always been such an intriguing story for me, because I wonder what that conversation looked like. When Lazarus came out, Jesus calls him out of the tomb, because Jesus was apparently very close to those three. And, it's just like, was Lazarus talking to Jesus later and like, man, why'd you call me back? Like, of all people, where I was. How could you call me back to this?
Yeah.
So that, and it shows Jesus's remarkable grasp on humanity that says, he wept. I don't think, he wasn't weeping for Lazarus. He knew where Lazarus was. Mm-hmm. I think the grief Jesus experiences there is probably twofold. First, he's crying because he knows what he's about to do. He's pulling Lazarus from someplace, incredible. And secondly, he was grieving because of the grief of the sister there. Yep. So it's just an interesting thing.
Well, and I think we toss this term around a lot, and this discussion's kind of reminded me of this kingdom mindset.
Yeah.
And how difficult that can be, and maybe, not to call you old, you're not old, but like, you're older than I am, so maybe it's easier the older you get to have more of a kingdom mindset, because it's like, I'm getting older. But at least where I'm at, and I know definitely through college and my time as Christian, you don't really have a full perspective on kingdom mindset. Like, it's something you like remind yourself of, but it's not like, okay, everything I'm doing now is to look forward to being in the kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, it's because you don't really wake up and realize your mortality.
Yeah.
Until you're a bit older. I mean, shoot, for me now, like, taking a nap is a gamble. It's just like, am I going to wake up?
Not that old.
I want to get to this other book before we close out. We're going to have to move kind of quickly here. This is Imagine Heaven. The book was published in 2015. This is the one by John Burke. Imagine Heaven. It's a blue book. If you're looking for this on Amazon or something. Man, both these books are so good. But Imagine Heaven it'll freak you out when you read it. So I want to share a few things. He examines, as a researcher now, over 1,000 near-death accounts, and he compared recurring themes with biblical descriptions of heaven, arguing that many experiences align surprisingly well with Scripture. And so there's this one case that he cites that I wanted to point out, of Pam Reynolds. She had rare brain surgery in 91. Her body temperature was lowered dramatically, blood was drained from her brain, and an EEG activity was reportedly absent during part of the procedure. Yet she later described details of the operating room, instruments, and conversations that she claimed to have observed while out of her body. Let me tell you, it's not on here, but some of the details that I recall, like she's floating up, she's seeing objects like on top of cabinets that were later and she talks about those things, and they went up and looked at tops of cabinets and they found them. There's another report where this other person had died and had left the body, like the spirit is leaving the body, and he sees a red shoe out on a ledge that you can't see from anywhere. You can't see it from the street, you can't see it from the apartments, and he's telling somebody, hey, I saw a red shoe out there as I was floating up, and they went out, and sure enough, there's a red shoe. So whatever you want to call that, the spirit, your consciousness or whatever, there's something taking place after you die. And so this was a fascinating one. And so he uses her example, this lady's example, of a case that challenges a purely materialistic explanation of consciousness. So if you're into that kind of thing and you like the reports and the details and the pragmatic empirical evidence that comes after that. That's interesting. And then I alluded to this, I think, last week. It's not all good. There was an atheist, his name was Howard Storm, university professor who experienced what he described as a terrifying encounter after a medical crisis. Rather than immediately entering light and peace, he reported being drawn toward dark, hostile beings. When I read that account, it's bone chilling. It is a scary thing to read. According to his account, he cried out for help and was rescued by a being that he later identified as Jesus, who he was calling out to. And again, we've talked a little bit about the power of that name. There's something to that, when we've lost our supernatural worldview of the Bible, we're giving up something we're giving up the most powerful thing in the universe when we lose that aspect of it. And so this experience completely transformed his worldview and led him to a Christian faith. And after you read that account, you understand why. He would come back from that and be a changed person. So basically, the two key findings in this book, in Burke's book, repeats that he repeats throughout the book, is that the experiences are very similar. They're remarkable. And the recurring themes that he found across different cultures of the more than 1,000 near-death experience accounts. Consciousness continues after clinical death. People describe being more alive, not less. Encounters with overwhelming love are common. Many report life reviews where they experience the effects of their actions on others. And many describe a brilliant light associated with love, truth, and holiness. So those are all, those themes come out in so many of the different reports that he writes about. And then he argues, second point, key finding, he argues that near-death experiences often confirm Scripture instead of contradicting it. And his central thesis is that many of the most credible near-death experience reports parallel biblical themes like life after death, accountability for one's life, the reality of love and grace, encounters with Jesus, the continuation of personal identity after death. And so it's, one of the things that really stuck out to me on that was the Jesus theme keeps coming up over and over and over again. And he talks about, these were people, cross-cultural, people that did not know Jesus, or worshipped Buddha or other gods or other things, and they have this encounter and come back and end up converting to Christianity. It's just like, what do you do with that? And I wish every atheist out there would read books like this, because it's like, what do you do with it? Like, how do you account for that? Like, are all these people just lying? I don't think so.
Yep.
All right. I felt like I was doing a book report.
Did feel like you're doing a book report at the end there. I didn't even know there was a back. So
yeah, that's saving paper.
No, I definitely want to check those books out. It's very, very fascinating and challenging for us to think about. I mean, even as a believer, it's like, okay, kingdom mindset. Like that's why we do it. I mean, this is the desire to want to be with Jesus is something that, I wish personally that I had more of, and I think that it's a good reminder of like, why am I a Christian?
So the story that Jesus recounts with the rich man and Lazarus, and I kind of started with that, and I want to end on that because there's something there that we need, I think, to pick up on, and why these books are so intriguing to me. So the man wants to the man that goes to torment, he's begging to come back so he can warn his brothers, and he's not allowed to do that. We have now these books that do not give us I'm struggling to find the right words here. It's like Jesus has looked at this and he says, you know what, I'm going to allow folks to experience things. They're not going to be completely dead. They're not going to be past the point where they're trapped in eternity. And they're going to have a story to tell. And so, and that's what we see. You know, these people, one of the things that emerges here, these people are completely changed when they come back. Mm-hmm. Their life is altered just, 360 or 180 degrees. And I think we need to pay attention to that. I don't think we should discount all of this and go, it's just a bunch of hogwash.
Yep.
Because we do read that account, and that man doesn't get the chance. But we have this kind of stuff that I would hope would get our attention, and we would look at it a little bit more closely.
Absolutely, 100% agree.
Okay. Final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, again, if this episode challenged you, we encourage you to like, share, subscribe. Keep a kingdom mindset as you go through this week. Think about the beautiful things that Scripture lays out for us, and this opportunity that we have to be with Jesus. Check out these books that Craig's mentioned. Definitely something I plan on doing. We always want to plug our sponsor, so we have Digging Deeper After Sunday, which is a quick recap of the Sunday morning.
We always say Digging Deeper After Sunday, but I think it's actually after Sunday.
After Sunday, Digging Deeper. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
So definitely check that out. Make sure you type it in correctly, or who knows what you'll get. Also, Ministry League, if you want a really good application of songs, devotionals, podcasts, definitely check that out. Of course, Central Church of Christ, where we both attend church, and Craig's, of course, the minister here, allowing us to have this great studio to be able to record these episodes in, and just encourage you to come visit us on a Sunday. If you're around Chattanooga, Tennessee, come check us out.
Until our next episode of The Lion, the Way, and the War, be kind to one another, love one another, and remember the Creator of the universe loves you so much that He gave up His only Son for you. Have a blessed day.